everyone to the August. Welcome everyone to the August 23rd Jupyter Developers Meeting. We will go ahead and get started now. I see Jamie's update on the HackPad. I don't think she's going to be joining. Everyone can take a scan through that. Looks like Grant Nestor will be at Burning Man. Go Grant, awesome. Errol, you're up first. Is there anything that you want to share with the group?
No, not really. Just what's written.
Okay. Min, anything? If not, we'll move on to Michael.
Nope, not really. I was off last week, so I'm just catching up today and heading to Eurosci-Fi tomorrow.
Awesome. Is Mike on the call?
You giving a talk?
I am.
Yeah.
Am I not visible?
There, you are now. Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing that I wanted to ask about, like most of what I've been doing is just going through old LaTeX bugs and trying to clean up some of the issue backlog in NVConvert, trying to get us ready for the 5.0 release. And one thing that's come up again and again and again is sort of customizability and LaTeX and how we want to handle some of the more advanced functionality that people want. And some of that, for example, requires allowing LaTeX to call out so this is for the IR kernel. They wanted to have the minted package in order to do syntax highlighting, but that requires having Write 18 access, which allows the LaTeX just when you run NVConvert to actually get external access to the shell, which I think in general we don't want to do, but we might want to do for certain use cases. But then also other things like we've overwritten the default include graphics to only allow basically a 80% sized things because that looks nice when you need like full page figures. They'll be all infant and whatnot. And the only way to allow it to have an optional argument where you also could say leave that other parameter configurable is to start adding some of these more advanced LaTeX packages like xparse and whatnot into the default build. And I wasn't sure what the policy has been going forward about deciding to include or not include packages when deciding to include or not include features versus just like leaving the defaults and letting advanced users sort of figure it out on their own.
Yeah, our policy so far has been that the base LaTeX templates that we offer should work in a pretty stock Linux, Mac LaTeX installation. So a user should be able to download the standard MacTeX installation and it should just work.
That makes sense. All of the libraries in question pretty much are only relying on libraries that are included there. In fact,
and we already use many things. We already use many things that are outside the basic tech, the slim installs. We already rely on many things that are outside that. So I think
LaTeX is our compiler, right? Or our template.
We haven't made a release with that yet, but that's one of the.
That wasn't with 4.0, or
no? That basically that changes what prompted Pointing Master to 5.0. We should have released it probably 6 months ago, but we moved on to other things. So we haven't done a release with that. But yeah, I think if it's in kind of a default TechLive Ubuntu package, that kind of thing, it's a reasonable thing to include.
Okay, then the next question is how much of a priority is enriching those sorts of features, for moving forward on stuff? Clearly it doesn't need to be there for we don't need to have a customizable include graphics function that we don't overwrite with so that people who know how the function works would be confused, but for 5.0. But should that be a 5.1? Should that be a wish list? Should we be looking at that further in the future? like if it is going to require sort of more intricately building out some of the basic level features for, because once you have customizable arguments for one thing, it's not going to be too hard to start adding that in a bunch of other places. And I'm sure that more advanced users will want it.
Yeah, I'm not too. I wouldn't block 5.0 on something like that.
That's what I was saying. It's definitely not blocking 5.0.
Yeah.
What I was wondering is how much is that like, yes, we really want that, or how much is it, oh, that'd be nice someday.
Yeah.
So
I mean, our philosophy so far has been to, I think we feel like it's sort of a slippery slope that once you start to add a few things, people will want other things. And that's where the custom templates provide a backdoor for users to do whatever they want. And so I guess I don't know about moving forward, but historically what we've told people is just write custom templates. Whether that's good or bad.
If they're extending the base template and they don't notice that, say, we overwrite include graphics and run into issues until this is someone's issue that is currently in process, is that they just did not realize.
I think there's definitely room for a lot of improvement in the blocks, the way the blocks are organized to make it as easy as possible for people to override what they want to override. But I don't think that needs to go down to the granularity level of parameters to tech functions.
Even if we've hidden some of those parameters to what would normally be there, so that their standard tech code would fail.
That's probably something that's probably something to fix. Like if we're rewriting what include graphics does, that's probably something we shouldn't do, but that we may have made with just a lack of tech expertise.
I don't know if there was a ton of tech expertise, but it was made for specifically making a couple of reports look nicer. I traced down a bunch of the introductions of these things. This reminded me of one other thing that then left my mind. So I may bring something else up, but other than that, I'm good for now.
Yeah, there are a lot of things in NB-convert, especially in the LaTeX templates that are, that solve the real problem, but that doesn't mean they're the best solution. So, if you can identify what problem it solved and fix the problem it introduces while still solving the problem that was solved, then that's an appropriate time to make a proposal for something like that.
Fair enough. Okay, and then I remembered what the other thing was. There's some long-standing issues around getting cross-references working as inserted, even just with like Markdown syntax for getting like headers to be able to refer to each other. Right now, they work if they're in the same cell, but if you start to have cross-cell references, they seem to fail for people. And I think that this, based on what some people were suggesting, I think Thomas included, was that this was due to the per cell analysis in NB-convert. Is that something that we absolutely need to do? Or is that just a architectural sort of quirk that
it's not something that we absolutely need to do. It's something we do right now, and I think it will be a challenge to change. But I think, at least for LaTeX export, I think it's probably something that should change. That to me, what I think is really the way NB-convert to tech actually should work is via the pandoc intermediate representation.
Yep.
And then let pandoc actually build the whole LaTeX document, rather than what we do now, which is let pandoc build LaTeX snippets and then NB-convert builds the LaTeX document.
Is there a way to indicate to pandoc that this part should be like interpreted as Python and this part should be interpreted as Markdown without like breaking it down into these cell level pieces?
Yeah, you could. Pandoc basically has an intermediate representation that's kind of similar to NB format, that it has kind of blocks of types and things. But that's a that's a complicated 6 or 7.0 project, but I think it's something that if we have the resources, we should explore.
Looking into that then. Do you know what I should read up on next? What does Pandoc call this format, for example?
I think it might be intermediate representation. If you, it's often the best way to look at it is if you do a Pandoc conversion to JSON, which is not actually a JSON document, it's a JSON serialization of the Pandoc data structure. So if you look for Pandoc JSON, you'll find references to what Pandoc calls it. Which I know.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have Peter next. Anything to share, Peter?
Nothing other than what's written there, just some minor releases and
Okay, Stephen?
I just want to reiterate that after this meeting, we're going to take a half-hour break, and then some of us are going to reconvene to talk about the headaches of trying to enable third-party extensions and work through those issues. So anyone's welcome to join us. It'll be on the same channel. Actually, no, previous channel, BlueJean/Jupyter, and we'll post that on the dev meeting attendance as well.
Okay. And Darian, sounds like what is in the update should do, right?
Yeah, that's right. I don't really have anything to report.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, so the main thing I wanted to bring up here is that I've been working on the CSS in Jupyter Lab, and I've introduced less. And basically, the approach that I'm taking right now is trying to solve the short-term pain of that the designers are facing in not having less or not having simple variables. And so basically adopting less in the short term. Right now I'm doing it server side. But the other thing that I'm starting to do is try to understand how we need to refactor our less files to enable really solid theming. And the big revelation that I think I've had is basically that the initial, I think, most sensible notion of a theme is actually not a bunch of CSS, but is rather a bunch of variables that get fed into our CSS. And the questions that brings up is that, like, if a theme is a set of less or CSS variables, that means a couple different things. One, custom themes need to be able to provide such a set of variables. But the other is that third-party extensions themselves are going to have CSS, which need to rely on those variables, which obviously means we need server or client-side rendering as well. And we need a way to provide, basically, well, I'm sure we'll need some sort of theme plugin that themes can provide their variables, but also that third-party plugins can get the current state of those variables and then render their or compile, transpile their CSS or their less files to CSS. And so all that to say, I'm not at all convinced that less is what we're going to stick with permanently, but it's a really lightweight, easy approach that supports both server-side and client-side rendering to at least start playing with sort of what does this architecture need to look like. And so that's where I'm at with that. Again, I know Sylvan asked the question is, like, have we discarded all other options? And no, basically less is simple enough, and it supports both rendering on both sides. As far as I can tell, there's not a SAS or an SCSS renderer that works on both client side and server side. That's sort of well supported and robust. Obviously, there's other things. There's post CSS, there's Myth, there's what are some of the other ones? Can't remember them off the.
Stylus. I think the added benefit of less is that it's familiar, that we have been using it too.
Yeah, and the other part of this is I've been working on our configuration for marked to bring it up to feature parity with the existing notebook, and using less now makes that much easier because all of our syntax highlighting stuff was in less, and so I'm going to run with that for a while and just see how it goes.
Hey, just quick remark. If you regroup all the variables in a smaller, separate less files, you can serve those less files so that third-party extensions can load these variables without having to recompile all the less.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm. Yeah. That. Now the one thing I haven't figured out, and this is where I'll have to bug Stephen, is right now basically how do I get Webpack to expose files to it in the front end level? So like, in other words, how would, like, to do client-side compilation of less, you actually need the actual less source file on the client side, and I don't know how to do that with Webpack, but I'm sure there's some magic.
Yeah, you probably don't need to use. Yeah.
So that's all I have. That's what I'm working on.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I think Sylvan is next. Oh, did you see John's note in the chat, by the way?
Hey,
You're muted, Sylvan.
Sorry, I was talking alone. So yeah, I spent some time working on Tricklets and IPy widgets, and the main PRs got merged by Min today. And I laid out a plan for changes in the notebook and server extensions mechanism that is orthogonal to the configuration directory thing. So I put it there on the hackpad. It's also in an issue. So yeah, please give me feedback on that. So the highlights are that I want to make sysprefix the default for the comments, that uninstalling should disable extensions. And when you install an extension, override should be true by default. And now there are also some changes in the way they are loaded. So let me know what you think.
Okay. Can you actually that spans so many different things. Could you post an email to the main Jupyter Google group about
Sure.
that?
Okay.
That would be really helpful. So
I really wanted to separate it from the configuration directory discussion, because I think that these are really orthogonal, and once we adopt what I propose, I think it's going to be easier to switch to the configuration directory setup. I mean, at least the one I have in mind.
Yeah. That would be great. Thanks, Sylvan.
Jason, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so that brings us to Spoo. Worthy, you want to talk about the branding guidelines? Can we hear you?
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so I've been working on branding with Jupyter, and more specifically consolidating all our logos into one logo across all products, because right now we have a lot of versions of our logo that are almost the same, but have a lot of like tiny differences. Like the moon sizes of some logos are bigger than others. Some logos have a gradient. Some logos have a different orange. And so I made an issue about that in the Jupyter GitHub. And I just wanted feedback on which ones you liked and what we should finalize on. I made an issue in the Jupyter design GitHub.
Yeah, so I sent an email to the Google group about this earlier in the week. and basically we're hoping to get all the input from everyone and make a decision by this Friday, sort of about what constitutes our actual logo. We've got, I think, 6 different variations in circulation right now, and part of this is required for us to work on the trademark side of things. They asked very detailed questions about, quote, what is the mark that's being trademarked. And so if you have any opinions about what our logo looks like, please go to the Jupyter/design repo and give us input on that question.
So how many different versions of the logo are we actually going to end up having? Because it's pretty normal to have like an icon version, a in-text version, a display version, and in fact, a couple of display versions because for different sizes of display.
Yeah, we'll definitely have multiple versions for different purposes. But right now, the different versions we have
you would expect to change because like the one that's going to be good for display is just going to be unreadable at the icon level.
Yep. But right now, the variations we have are more accidental than purposeful. But yes, we'll definitely need to have variations to cover those things.
So is there an aim on the number of them? Because that might also affect like how people think about which ones or what features of them.
Sorry, hold up. I think we're definitely going to need to cover sort of large versus small sizes, especially because with our logo, the moon sizes start to become very illegible. So at least 2 variations that cover size. We'll also probably need to have variations for different color situations, either monochrome or black and white, those types of variations as well.
We also probably want a white background versus black background variation. And if we ever do want to have like a colored background as a primary thing, that actually should probably be a third like variation. I'm just thinking back to some of the assets that I've seen for other companies and whatnot, and those are standard. So we might end up with 6 still if we have those 3 cases.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And I should note the 6 that we have now are all full color on a white background, and so they're
Got it.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
There's variation where there isn't really intended to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, if you care about such things, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you care about such things, please hop on. And then Anna, what were you going to say?
Just that there's a link in the hackpad to the issue. So you can click through and see the screenshots that Spoo created of all the different variations.
Excellent.
Got it.
Anything else, Spoo?
That's it for me.
Okay. Do you have a goal in mind for the completion of those branding guidelines?
We're trying to finalize the logo by Friday, but then finish the branding guidelines by next Friday.
Okay. We'll see how that goes. There might be some additional feedback once you create the final proposed one, but that's a good goal. All right, thank you. The only other thing that I have, let me just make sure no one's typed in anything else after me. No, I am last on here. So the only other thing I have is I wanted to bring up the dev meeting. Planning for that has been on hold due to other higher priorities, but I'm getting back into that this week. The placeholder dates that we had for that dev meeting is November 6th through the 12th. So look for some more announcements end of this week or beginning of next. And that's all I have. Anything else before we sign off? Oh, Chris, did you have anything? I didn't see any notes on the hackpad, but if you have anything, feel free to jump in.
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I think we'll sign off then. Min, can you go ahead and end the recording?